call to order this District of Clearwater regular council meeting for Tuesday, September 5th at 2 o'clock. I'd like to begin by acknowledging we're fortunate to be gathering together on the unceded territory of the Sim people who have been caretakers of this land since time immemorial. Item 3, are there any late items that anybody would like to add? Councillor Herring?
Yeah, I'd like to add in the unfinished business section discussing the letter of support for Wells Gray Community Forest Rec Center.
Okay, so that'll be 11.5. Okay, anything else? Oh, sorry.
Could I clarify, please, Your Worship? Is this the letter of support that was on the last agenda?
Yes,
So you want to bring it back?
as unfinished business.
So my understanding, it was in unfinished business last time and we didn't vote to remove it. So it's just I noticed it's not in there and I'd like to continue the discussion.
I don't have, sorry, Your Worship, I don't have my procedure bylaw in front of me. I believe that the mayor will need to bring that back because any business that wasn't addressed there was deemed to be council's wish. It's deemed that council's wish is not to address it.
Okay, well, I'll bring it back then. Yeah. Because people want to discuss it. Okay, so that'll be 11.5 on your agenda. Are there anything further? If not, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda with the late item? Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Bratton, seconded by Councillor Herring. All those in favor? Are there any conflicts of interest or pecuniary interest that anybody would like to declare? Seeing none? Oh,
No, I don't think so.
okay, good. Go with it. Moving on.
Oh,
Sorry. Ms. Yansu?
Sorry, Your Worship. Councillor Sim has declared a conflict of interest on a matter that was previously before council.
Oh,
and
on
it
the
is in
in-camera.
council again.
In the in-camera.
oh, I didn't see it with what was given, so I don't know, and I haven't opened it. So if there is, I declare pecuniary, or I declare whatever you need me to declare.
You carry forward conflict of interest. Okay, fair enough.
I didn't know. I only went by what we were sent.
Okay. So thank you for declaring that the thing that you didn't need to know that you didn't declare and never, it's declared now.
Full disclosure.
And it's part of the minutes. TNRD director, I don't believe he's here
yes.
or online. Delegations or presentations. Moving on to item 8.1, and we have quite a few of them. Adoption of minutes of regular council meeting for August 15th. And that's 8.1. That's the first one. Yes, Councillor Sim.
Would it be all right to just ask a couple of questions? I tried to look for the recording, but I don't think it loaded. So I just had just a couple of easy ones. The first one is, do we have an update on the strategic plan? This is all relating to the financial report that was given for 2024.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Worship. We do. There was a bit of misunderstanding. My understanding was the previous CIO was going to complete that project. His understanding was that he was passing it over, so there was some delay based on that. We would have brought in the facilitator to present it at this meeting, but she is unavailable today, so she is available the October 3rd.
Okay, thank you very much. And then the second thing is before we have that meeting in October, will there be room for council to work with staff on specific priorities from the strategic plan? So what I mean by that is that the staff has typically brought forward business cases. And then if there's anything that council, is looking for, it always seems to come at the end. And then there isn't that room for discussion. So I didn't know where council landed on that, or how they felt, or if it will just be staff driven for the projects.
I think we'll have to, go ahead, Ms. Yansu.
Thanks again, Your Worship. The business cases typically are what's in the budget process. The strategic plan is supported by what's called a corporate implementation plan, which defines the deliverables, or many of the deliverables of the strategic plan. If when that is presented, if council looks at that and says, this bylaw we don't want to look at, but let's prioritize this one instead, that's certainly an option. So as far as the strategic planning goes, there isn't usually business cases. There's the implementation plan.
Yeah, so it would be, that's exactly it. So it's the implementation. It's just if there's anything that's not captured by the business cases as presented by staff, and council is wanting to put something forward, whether that be, you know, a new initiative or a new project or new anything. In the past, there hasn't been that space for it.
Yeah, I think the difference right now, if you want to go ahead, anybody else, but I think the difference is now is this is the first time we've done a strat plan ahead of budgeting.
Yes.
So we do have that, we have the dual process going to happen. Once we get we had hoped to have the strat plan landed on desks before this, but as Ms. Yansu has said, there was a bit of a misunderstanding there. And if we do have that at the next first meeting in October, that will be the
Okay.
time to go through that and then say, okay, we also talked about this. This is a priority of council that seems to be missed in that process.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
Save
And
your
then,
notes for then.
yeah, I will save my notes for then. And then lastly, there was a reference to the grant and aid, and I wondered if there was need to update this policy and what it might look like in regards to the financial timeline.
Ms. Klassen, you want to take that? I don't know which one we're talking about.
I'm not sure which minutes that refers to, but it is on my desk to do.
Okay.
However, we are a little bit stretched with resources at the time trying to implement the Questica program and the grant and aid. But we will definitely put that as a priority for the grant and aid process.
Yeah, just going through that 2024 and what some of the dates, and it referred to the grant and aid process, but I know that there had been some willingness of council to redo that grant and aid process to make it more seamless. So just wondering where that was. And then my final one for budget is the approval of the budget. Is there need to approve the budget earlier to assist staff in sourcing project supplies or securing contracts?
If council chooses to have an early adoption of projects, we could do that at the time.
Yeah, we did have this. We did have a bit of this discussion at the last council meeting, and it was with the lack of resources right now.
Sure.
You know, not at this point, I'm not hiring a second person. The position that we'd offered in finance to help implement Questica and other things, we are, as much as we want to be ahead, we're actually on normal schedule right now. But yes, as those resources come along, I could see getting ahead on these things.
Yeah, just recognizing that the stress that the staff has had in terms of that sourcing or confirming things because our process was didn't facilitate that, so trying to do better. Did you have, yeah?
Okay, so that was on item 8.1, which is the 1 minutes.
Yeah, and my very last one, and this is why your meeting was only 53 minutes last time, people, so. I know.
We're actually here for a couple hours, but go ahead.
So the last one was just the roads update. There was some updates on the capital roads, but I didn't know if Robson Street had been addressed. I was down there this weekend, and people were just wondering if there was a timeline.
Robson Street, unfortunately, if I remember correctly from Mr. Carmichael, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, there is an asbestos concrete pipe underneath Robson Street.
Is that Robson or the Park Drive and Helmpton one?
I believe that's Robson. That needs to be addressed before we repave Robson, if that's what you're asking about. But go ahead, Mr. Carmichael.
That's correct, but we will be patching it properly, like cold patching, cold mix.
Okay. Oh, sorry, you're right. That's also I think that's the patch between the medical clinic and the
That's-
entrance
Right.
to
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll be doing that in September.
So the
So yeah.
So
and maybe
we
you
still
could
failed to get hot mix,
Yeah,
but
maybe you could explain the fact that it's very hard to acquire asphalt. We had trouble with that right now.
all right. Okay.
can you hear me now?
So yeah, so starting late in the game, we didn't get hot mix asphalt for this year, but we will be cold patching in September here.
And that's the Robson Street one where the road was dug up for.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so
that will
that's
be as
happening
well.
in September.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks.
So we had a mover and a second and all that. All those in favor? Yes, we did. Bratton and no, we didn't.
Not on that, no.
Okay.
That's called streamlining.
I think
There is a recommendation under 8.1 that the minutes of the regular council meeting held October 15th, 2023 be adopted as presented amended. Can I get a mover
move
and a
that.
second? Moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Herring. All those in favor? The minutes of the special council meetings, 8.2, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. Anything that anybody wishes to ask on that? If not, can I get a mover and a seconder on that? Thank you, seconder.
Second that.
Seconded by Councillor McKenzie. All those in favor? That passes. Moving on to adoptions of minutes of committee meetings. 9.1, 2 sets of meetings for the cemetery committee. What is the wish of council? Sorry, Mr. Prime.
Yeah, Your Worship. I just wanted to clarify that we don't need a particular resolution on 9.1, 9.2, or 9.3, as they will be adopted as received as part of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3, if there are any comments or questions. If not, we just move forward to 9.4.
I have one question.
Go ahead, Councillor Bratton.
Because I was on the cemetery committee, I just wanted to clarify when the bylaw will be put together. I know that CAO, Mr. Thomas, was going to, that was one of his things he wanted to do, but I know things have changed, so I'm not sure where we're at with that.
Go ahead, Ms. Yansu.
Sorry, Your Worship, Mr. Prime has attended the meetings on my behalf,
Yep.
so he can probably give a better update.
Go ahead.
Yes, as far as the cemetery bylaw goes, it was being done by the former CAO, and we just have not selected sort of who was going to carry that at this time. So it is just sort of
In limbo.
at that point.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything further? If not, we're moving to item 9.4, recommendations from the July 20th, 2023 Wellsgate Community Forest Commission meeting. There are 3 different sets of recommendations there. The first, that the application submitted by Blackpool Fire Rescue in the amount of $22,870.40 for the purchase of airbags and e-power ram equipment be approved, and that the Wells Gray Community Forest Corporation and District of Clearwater logos be placed on the fire truck in recognition of the grant.
I'll move that.
Thank you. Seconded. Discussion? If not, all those in favor? Thank you. That passes. The second recommendation, the application submitted by Upper Clearwater Volunteer Fire Brigade in the amount of $20,777.32 for the purchase of fire equipment, namely fire pumps and equipment, be approved, and that the Wells Gray Community Forest Corporation and District of Clearwater logos be placed on the fire pumps, and a social media post in recognition of the grant be put out there. What's the desire of council on that one?
I'd like to move that, please.
By Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Herring. Discussion? Question?
Can I get clarification what social funds means? I probably should know this. I don't know that.
I think it might have been under what grant category, but Siansu?
Could I ask you to repeat the question, Councillor Broughton?
It just has the, in parentheses, social funds. It looks like that's where the funding's coming from. In the other one, it says matching funds. That one says social funds. I just wasn't sure what the difference is.
I apologize.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think, do you know, Mr. Prime? Yeah.
Yes, Your Worship. I believe it was a category of grant in terms of they applied to a specific category for their funds in terms of what they had to match or not, or if it was in lieu for their time.
Subcategories on what type of grants.
Okay.
Category, and that's all gonna be, that will all be streamlined under the new process.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor? That passes. And then the third recommendation, that the application submitted by the Wells Gray or Doge Club in the amount of $24,227.55 matching funds for the purchase of replacement tracks for the Snowcat, including the cost of installation, be approved. And that, now that I've lost my thing here, and that the Wells Gray Community Forest Corporation and District of Clearwater logos be placed on the Snowcat signage and social media posts in recognition of the grant. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Frizzle, seconded by Councillor Bratton. Discussion. If none, all those in favor, and that passes. Thank you. Nothing under item 10, unfinished business, 11.1, nothing there. 11.2, nothing under deferred items. 11.3, recommendation from the June 6th, 2023 meeting. Community and Economic Development and Infrastructure Standing Committee regards the repairs to the riprap for the Old North Thompson Highway Bridge at the Clearwater River. The recommendation is that council directs staff to obtain a Class B cost estimate for the necessary repairs and improvements to the bridge, include this project for the 2024 to 2028 5-year financial planning. Is somebody from staff speaking on this one? If not, okay, Mr. Prime.
Yeah, this is just a bit of homework ensuring that the recommendation from the committee was brought in front of council.
And does everybody understand what this is? Okay, thank you. So basically, repairing riprap on the bridge base to protect the bridge from water damage, erosion. Okay, all those in favor?
Oh, questions?
Mover in a second, sorry. Okay, mover in a seconder, sorry. Who would like to move and second that one?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Herring, sorry.
I'll second that one.
Thank you, Councillor McKenzie. All those in favor. 11.4, Clearwater Volunteer Fire Association. There is a recommendation. The council having reviewed the proposal presented by the Clearwater Volunteer Firefighters Association at the regular council meeting on August 15th, 2023, hereby approves the donation and installation of playground equipment to be fully funded by the Clearwater Volunteer Firefighters Association, and the District of Clearwater shall assume the responsibility for ongoing maintenance of the installed playground equipment. Councillor Sim.
Just a question, at the presentation, was there an estimated of what that maintenance cost would be looking like? I mean,
It's relatively small because it's a very small amount of equipment.
okay.
I don't think it's going to be.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
I'd like to move the motion.
thank you. Seconder?
Second that.
Seconded by Councillor McKenzie. All those in favor? Thank you. And item 11.5, Wells Gray Community Forest Rec Center, letter of support. Discussion. Councillor Herring.
So yeah, we had talked about this last time. Just in terms of it was in the unfinished business. We were holding on it. We weren't sure, and we wanted to wait until we had more councillors in the room to discuss it, I think. But my opinion is that I'd like to send a letter of support that's highly qualified, I guess, to say we support the idea in principle pending more information on things like budget, who would be responsible for the costs, maintenance, and sort of, creating of this vision and how that was going to be done. More just because in the presentation, I was struck by the fact that they had support from the regional district, the Simp First Nation. They don't, just the director, just one director. Yeah. And then they had someone from Simp, they had, various levels of support. And I think for me, I'd like to support the project in principle, although not necessarily the project vision as stated, sort of thing. I just wanted to bring that up for discussion and see what other people thought.
Okay, further discussion? Councillor Sim.
No, I think Councillor
you
McKenzie,
first.
you go. Oh,
Yeah, you first.
oh, really? Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'd like to support further their efforts on further exploration on what might be involved in building a wellness studio. And in my mind, that would include a more comprehensive feasibility study that shows potential costs, the operating costs, and would have wider community engagement. But I think just the willingness to explore it might move things like, where would it go? Because those are some unknowns. But again, I share the same intent with Councillor Herring, is that what was presented was too big and didn't attach costs or anything, but further exploration I would be very willing to support.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Sim and Councillor Herring putting a letter of support for these guys. I would like to see that, and bearing in mind that a letter of support doesn't mean we break ground next week. I think some people are on that premise that if we support this, if we send a letter of support, that they're going to start this project right away. Obviously, there's a few things that need to be flushed out with that, and I would like to show our support and get this next phase from Community Forest and just see where it can go. there's a lot of potential there, but there's definitely a larger vision than what we can accommodate from what I see so far.
Further comments, discussion? Councillor Frizzell?
I agree. I like the idea of exploring it. I think it really needs to come down to a more feasible project. That was a huge project that he was showing us, and we can't support that, or we can't afford that, I think is more what I'm going for. But I would like to see the what opportunities out there.
Councillor Sim?
Just to your point, Councillor Frizzell, is I think that's an important facet, is that nobody's claimed responsibility for who would have the operating costs, and I think that would be part of the exploration. You know, I didn't hear in the presentation that it was for the DOC to support, whether that is the intention, you know, but it wasn't said. And let's get that
We need to
get that in writing and understand it.
But those letters of support that they have, my concern with the letter of support coming from us is we're talking for the public at large. And these are from smaller groups. And so I'm just very trepidatious about people understanding what we're supporting. We're supporting exploration. Further exploration.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I think supporting them exploring further is
Yes.
reasonable. I would say that in one version of the presentation, because I've seen 3 versions of the presentation, not necessarily, and I can't recall which one it was, there was a suggestion that there was a $100,000 a year legacy fund for operation by the community forests in one vision, and that would have been 100,000 of their estimate of 700,000 a year in operating costs. 700,000 would be basically 30+% tax increase instantly for the District of Clearwater. So, and that is actually not the estimate that I would go with. That said, if it is council's desire to put forward a Wells Creek Community Forest rec letter support and further explanation, somebody can make that motion.
So I'll make that motion, and that's actually very interesting financial information, because that wasn't presented to council. So,
Well, I mean, it really, the problem is nothing was really presented on financials.
Right.
And the scope of the project is larger, that was presented as far as items was larger than the Prince George Rec Center project, which was $40 million. And it actually was larger in scope than the Canada Games pool, the facility in Kamloops right now, which services 100,000 people. So I think exploration is to a more reasonable scaled approach. And where is the money coming from?
yeah.
Because right now, my understanding of the assets of the community forest, even if you were to include funds that the commission holds, is under $11 million. So that's not enough anytime soon. So if somebody wishes to make that motion, as Councillor Sim, what would be the motion that you would be making?
So the one that I can try and take a stab at is the motion for council to write a letter to Wellsgrave Community Forest that supports their effort to further explore what might be involved in building a wellness studio or a wellness center, including a more comprehensive feasibility study that shows potential costs, including operating costs, and involves wider community engagement.
Thank you. Ms. Klassen.
Could we add Wellsgrave Community Forest Corporation?
Corporation, yes,
purposes?
thank you. Okay. That motion, do we have a seconder on that motion?
I'd like to second that, please.
Okay, further discussion? Not all those in favor? Okay, opposed? Noted opposed? Thank you.
Your worship, your worship.
Yes,
We just moved back to who moved and seconded, sorry.
moved by Councillor Sim, seconded by Councillor Bratton? or-
Mackenzie.
Mackenzie.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll say it out loud next time. Okay, moving on, nothing under item 12, 13. Did a couple meetings, UBCM. I have a meeting scheduled, BC Ambulance Service, I believe this Friday. also obviously UBCM coming up in 2 weeks. But mostly last 2 weeks I took us holidays. Went up to Kinbasket Lake for a couple days this weekend. And got to see Valemount, and they're lovely downtown. And there's quite a lot of construction happening in Valemount. There's whole subdivisions on the south side of town. It's a busy place right now. A lot of the housing needs that we would like to see happen here are happening on the ground up there right now. So it's nice to go out and compare notes with other communities and that sort of thing. So I'll leave it with that for now, because we have a lot going on. But council reports, Councillor Bratton.
Good afternoon. I attended a food security strategic planning session. Very cool. It was facilitated by Dr. Warren, forgive my pronunciation, Helfrich, maybe, of WRH Consulting. And it was very informative to me. I wasn't actually sure what the food security program offered in Clearwater, so I thought I would take a moment to explain what they do, because it's actually fairly phenomenal. They cover McClure to Blue River, and I think I went quiet. Was I too loud? Am I here? Okay. It started in 2007 with Neighborhood Kitchen and Community Garden. It has grown to include a gleaning program, soup kettle, food security table, Clearwater Farmers Market, Winter Farmers Market, nutrition coupon program, the seed library, lending cupboard, which is for food preservation, CD Saturday event, B Club, Farmers Market business, incubator program. I was amazed. It's crazy that these kind of that we need this food security, and but I'm so glad that we have it. And they've been doing some fabulous work and generating all kinds of interest in the community. So I was happy to be a part of that. And the organizers, Joanna Hurst and Carrie Milner Carnes, are wonderful, wonderful women, and it was a great thing. So anyways, I just wanted to explain that.
Thank you. Moving on, Councillor Frizzle.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I also attended that meeting. One thing that I found very important, that they got 5-year funding. And that is huge, because it gives them the opportunity to enhance the programming that they have, and it also gives them the opportunity to look for other opportunities for other programs without the stress of applying for funding every single year. So that was, I'm excited to see what they do with it, because that's going to be very interesting. I told you a while back that I attended the Trans Mountain, I forget what they called it actually, but I just...
The update?
Yeah, it was the update of what they've done, and it was just the closing down. And then she'd sent a survey, and the feedback, which is everybody should know, because it is that what they've discovered is that opportunities for locals are important. Workforce accommodation must be planned, managed, and tracked throughout the construction, and community benefits are important and should be agreed to prior to construction start. Did we not already know that? I
hope it was a good meal.
I didn't even get one.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. There is a Trans Mountain breakfast at UBCM. I don't think I'll be able to attend, so I will forward the invite to the rest of council, and generally 1 or 2 people can attend. They feed you well.
Oh, that's good.
But it would
They
be
used
it
to.
would be yeah. They feed everybody well. Anyways, I'll forward that opportunity. I'm pretty sure that I'm doing a breakfast session that day as the facilitator. That's it.
No, I got one more thing. I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to congratulate the Candle Creek Half Marathon. They did have 160 people register, but 66 couldn't come because of fires or fear of fires or whatever. So 66 have been deferred to next year, but they had just about 100 race, and they had a really good time. So congratulations on a successful event again. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Herring.
Nothing to report for me.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. Not a lot to report this time around. Been having a little bit of a mental reset and holidays over the last bit of summer here before fall comes into effect. But just want to thank Councillor Sim for putting together a bang-up job with crew helping Dr. Aosami. move in last Friday. Councillor Bratton was there as well, myself, and little block action. There was a lot of people that came from the neighborhood just to lend a helping hand, and I've never seen a U-Haul get unloaded so quick, and everything in place, the TV mounts getting started and everything. It was very helpful to him, so thank you for that.
What time did the truck finally arrive?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock?
Wow, it was supposed to be
Thank you.
noon.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing.
But the driver did help set up beds that night, so.
Redemption.
Councillor Matheson is on a wee holiday. Councillor Sim.
Thanks very much. I had the opportunity to tour Uconstruct in Whitehorse. We've talked about that in economic development, and it is basically it's basically high school for adults, makerspace for adults. It was really incredible. It used to be an old grocery store, and it has now been transformed into an area that offers woodworks, metalworks, textiles, sewing. They even have a podcast studio. They have hotspot desks and phone booths where you can do your own meeting services. And they have meeting space that can be smaller, larger rooms, which are also used for educational sessions or seasonal youth programs. The hotspot desks are almost always booked. The entire building works on a membership base. They have weekly socials that they do. And what the Yukon is imagining is what future work looks like. And while there is a strong call back to office, the virtual office being anywhere is a tremendous opportunity for any small community to consider including in their economic development plan. So Mr. Thomas had introduced us to that, so it was exciting to be able to have a tour, and it lived up to everything that he said that it was. Speaking of DOC, the recreation programs of the summer look to be terrific. Great to see the swimming lessons. There was a few comments about the ducks, and while they're cute and visitors love to photograph them, the itch is back. And hoping that might be some sort of action plan developed for 2024. The grass is strongly fertilized.
I think there could be gleaning for the food security program. Is that what you're suggesting?
Just looking forward. As Councillor McKenzie has said, did assist Dr. Ayusami and his family moving into the community. My thanks to both of them for coming out. The family felt greatly relieved after driving across the country from Saskatchewan with 3 children and a 4-week-old baby. So they were a little overwhelmed that way. I am one of the things that came out of that particular greeting is that there was a number of neighbors that came out, and it was the first time that they had met one another, and that there's a real call out for how do we meet one another and how do we socialize. And so I am wondering at the October 5th Parks and Recreation is if we can have an update on some of the prospective community events that maybe are being planned by staff, in particular the volunteer brunch that was highly successful last year in December, and whether or not that is something that could go forward again. I don't know how council feels about that or where it sits in the work plan of staff, but I feel that there's an ache in this community about people wanting to have more.
Do you wish to comment on that? Yeah, go ahead. Ms. Sue.
I can, Your Worship. What is her title? Recreation and Events and something coordinator will be attending the October 3rd meeting because of the public art policy that will be coming back to council. So in the meantime, I can ask her what the schedule or how much pre-planning is done, what the schedule looks like for the year, and she can come prepared to speak to that then.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That would be great.
And to that note, somebody else approached me for a community block party. And now I think it's on the flats. Anyways, keep going.
Oh, well, terrific. I love block parties, and I think that they're important, and I'm hoping that maybe people take the other initiative. But I also do feel that people who moved here over the pandemic are craving ways to make those connections, and how we maybe move forward. Even having your welcome here and utilizing the Sportsplex and the curling lounge before the ice gets in. And just how do we use our spaces just differently? But our discord is coming from living online, and where we come together is when we rub shoulders, and we all saw that at the Canada Day barbecue. A few other things, but I think what the really important one that's coming up is Truth and Reconciliation. And my question for that is, will all the staff have T-shirts that week And if not, is that something that is important to council, or is it up to individuals? Where do we stand on that?
I'm fine with it, but I mean, what you're asking is, are we going to fund staff to have T-shirts?
Yeah, I am.
Ms. Yansu.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think at this point it's a personal decision for the staff. We've left it at that. I have an orange T-shirt. I don't know if they all do. That's where it's at.
It is essentially a personal choice. It is I mean, organizationally, we as councillors, well, obviously have decided to wear that shirt, but yes, it is. I do agree it is a personal choice. Councillor Herring?
Yeah, and I like the personal choice idea because I think it's a way to give people that power to send that message themselves rather than just making it a policy. So I think it's good to support it. I think there's lots of places to get T-shirts for that as
and
well.
I just wanted to make sure, I'm not suggesting it should be a policy, but I didn't know if there had been discussion about that it is personal choice, or if there was other ways. So, and if there was need. So we've discussed it. Thank you very much for that. The only other thing is I did wonder also is there's 94 calls to action as part of Truth and Reconciliation. Is that something that we would ever?
Can you repeat that?
There's 94 calls of action to Truth and Reconciliation. I am not familiar with them. I don't know if they are. One of the things I saw up in Whitehorse is in their public spaces is they do have them printed and laminated just for that awareness, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, no, and I think that's good. The report is in my desk somewhere. Calls to action, and I have read them, and we've actually done a few of them, and we're gonna have comment from staff. But also to let you know, both the TNRD board and the hospital board will be just essentially the same plus 3 members. We'll be going through sensitivity training in the next couple of months. We're approving it at the next, we theoretically are approving it at the next meeting. I will look at that, if there is a way to do that here. Most of the people in this room have done the blanket ceremony and a few other things, but there's a formal process. It's 8 modules. It's run by an Indigenous company. It's quite good. From
Is
what I've
that
seen so far.
a Sanya?
Sanya, yeah. So yeah, that might be, and I think that would also happen through one of the medical programs.
Yeah, so all physicians through the divisions, that is offered as training?
Yeah. I'm sure I did at least a half-day version of that through something to do with BC Doctors. Did staff have any comments? No?
Well, sure. Thank you, Your Worship. I think it's call to action number 51 that calls for training of all at all levels of government for staff and elected officials. And so there's cultural awareness training that's available, and I've been exploring looking at bringing a trainer in. I just have not quite gotten to that stage yet. So, Councillor, you're a little ahead of me on that.
No, you've already been thinking about it. You just said that. So there you go. I've just verbalized it and allowed you to let us know your thoughts. Anyway, it goes back to how our office space can be used to further Truth and Reconciliation and help even on the education process. Not necessarily to do any of that, but just to start expanding the awareness. And it's just not one day. It is actually, the call. And helping people to understand that even having a copy of the book, 21, what's it called? You guys all know it. Having 21 things you might not know about the Indian Act in the foyer. Like, just how can we further this? What can we do better? And simple measures to engage our public.
Yeah, sure. And I challenge council to read. I've read them. Read them. It's an online document. There's three reports. There's one very large one. And then I believe there's 2 other documents. One outlines the calls to action, but there's the whole testimony of Truth and Reconciliation. I believe there's also a 200-page report, which is a summary of that, which is 250-page report, which is a very important read. So read that in the next couple of months. Come back to council, and we'll start talking about those things. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's also a session at UBCM So again, the only thing is that, is there, you know, how are we after Truth and Reconciliation on the 30th is what do we do to maybe do it in our foyer? I leave it there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Where are we? 15. 15.1, note that the CAO report appears on the second meeting of the month, so I'm assuming you'll be delivering that sometime in the email. New business staff reports, financial update to June 30th. There is a PDF. If anybody has questions, it's in your report. Okay. There's no need to do a resolution, but Councillor Samo, I see, or anybody else have a question? Or Ms. Glassen, do you want to comment? Go for it.
Sure, I'll make a few quick comments. This financial report is up to June 30th, 2023. At this time, it provides us with, demonstrates some governance principles that are very important, such as accountability and transparency. The finances are in order in that they are, if they're in revenue, they're about 50%-ish. So your property tax revenue is at 100% because we've recorded it in May. And we've received some government transfers or grants, the $1.5 million, as well as a small communities grant at $447,000. There we go. It was there.
He's switching screens.
Yeah, let's just, 3 slides down to the 3rd slide. Thank you. So this is your revenue. Look at your revenues that we have collected or have recorded. Your green arrow are the categories. The red circle is where the financial plan for the year is, and your actual is the blue arrow by the truck, and then your percentage of budget. So normally we would look at, like, we're 50% through the year, so around 50%. However, for property taxes, we record those right at around May. We've collected about 92% of all our revenue for the current year. Sales of service, those are things like septage, receiving, rec programs, things like that is right on the target of about 52%. And we talked a little bit about the government transfers or grants. And other revenue includes things such as interest and penalties. And of course, on July the 5th, we would have recorded a penalty for property taxes. So we see a little bit of higher percentage there. On this slide, it shows your expenditures for the District of Clearwater. The expenditures are at about 50%. So some of the things to consider here is that we have some special projects included in these expenditures, some large ones. So the desludging of Cell 2, which is $730,000. So you'll see that in the sewer line there. So it looks like they're not spending their money, but they are. And on the debt principal payment is higher than 50% because we have an annual debenture payment that was made in May or in April, and that was for the Well 3 loan or debenture that we have for Well 3. This is council contingency slide, and it's showing that we have about 44,000 left, and that I haven't adjusted it since June. So if there has been council direction post-June, I will adjust it. Following slide is something I just wanted to bring to your attention so there's no surprises. So in our travel and training budget for council, we have about $35,000 in travel and training. Our actual spending year to date is about $23,500. And my estimate for the end from July to December, which is the UBCM, is about another 18,000. So I'm estimating that we're going to go a little bit above our budget on our travel and training. There's been a lot of it going around, a lot of training and travel this year for sure. And I recognize that hotel prices
Are
and
ridiculous.
costs of fuel and things like that have gone up significantly. Next slide, please.
Sorry, on that, do we need to do a budget amendment to encapsulate that then?
I don't think a budget amendment is necessary, but we could take it from council contingency if that's the wish of council.
And in just noting that you're also, this is in your projection,
so it's not
so we
there
actually
yet.
haven't spent that
Yeah.
part where we're going into the red yet, so, but yes, we'll get back to that.
When we do go in the red.
We have about 49 projects that are ongoing. 26 of those are on schedule and we're working on them, and 22 as of June 30th have not been started. But post June 30th, I know that we bought the parks vehicle is now on site. We've been doing some flood mapping. The air conditioner, the NTSP, the DLCC air conditioner has been ordered. The dehumidifier, I believe, has arrived on site. Nice. And the NTSP roof is in process. So a lot of the projects are in process. They may not have been completed and the finances haven't caught up to them yet, but they're well on their way. And that basically concludes my
Update.
report as of June 30th.
Okay, further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Sim.
Thanks very much, and I'm glad to hear that the North Thompson Sportsplex roof project is going ahead. In regards to economic development, it's only noting that 8% of the budget has been utilized. Is there an update on whether or not the position has been filled and how we are moving forward?
Okay, go ahead.
I'm so sorry, Councillor. Could you repeat the question?
So the economic development line, it's showing as of June the 30th, only 8%. And I do know that we've got some funds in there. Has the position been filled?
Thanks, Your Worship. No, it has not, because we have had some confusion around the funding and which funding stream was actually eligible for that position. So very recently, we've had conversations with the funders, and I believe that's now clarified. Is that correct, Mr. Prime?
Through your worship, thank you. That funding has been clarified, and the position would be going back out in the near term.
Okay, and then that will assist with the budget moving forward on those line items? Hopefully, okay.
That's correct, yeah.
And then in your slides you had, what does the carry forward mean? So you've got that column that says carry forward. This your nice diagram said that no projects would be carried forward. So I was just wondering for some clarification, please.
Through you to the mayor, or through the mayor to you. By carry forward, some of the projects have been carried forward from last year.
Okay, all right. And the very last question is there a possibility of receiving updates on the second floor expansion project and 37 East at the October committee meeting to assist with the budget development?
Staff will note that. Okay. Hey, further questions? None. Thank you for the updates. Good numbers in there, and I was totally expecting to see us overrun on travel and training. this being the first year for a few counselors and staff, and that was sort of everybody go out. First year post-COVID as well, where we were allowed to travel. It was good to get out there. I think we all learned a lot of things, and I think we will at UBCM as well. So thank you for your report. Next one, leak detection and water system analysis. Mr. Carmichael, there's some interesting stuff in here.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. There's, yeah, no request. It was just for information, just to kind of bring you up to speed, how much water use we've reduced by fixing the few leaks we had around town. It was very, very exciting to see the flows drop this drastically, almost cut in half there.
I think there's a typo that says we're 1.25 million per day, liters per day, but we're the first line of the paragraph after discussion. But the next one is the one that's of interest to me, which is we were decreased from 1,300 liters per day to 777 liters per day. That's quite remarkable.
Oh, yeah, so that's liters per person per day.
Per person per day, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Any questions on that? No, it's good. I mean, it's amazing that you fix four sets of leaks, and we basically take a significant part of our problem away. And I look forward to the discussion about water meters to find the rest of them in the future. Any further questions, comments? If not, thank you for the report. Moving on to item 16.3, there is a staff recommendation. I'll leave that to staff to talk about.
Hey. Oh. Yeah, there was a request from the bidder that we're recommending that we change the contract from 4 years to 5 years. He just found there's a lot more avenues for him if you had a 5-year municipal contract. You get some benefits like to borrowing power and things like that.
So that's in addition to the current recommendation? Because I'm not seeing that in the report.
Oh,
And so the recommendation would be that council direct staff to award the road maintenance contract, costs include revised sweeping for $642,700 plus taxes to Black River Contracting. I'm assuming that's per year. It would be a 5-year contract, however we would word that.
Just to
Yeah, just a second. Okay.
So questions up
Yeah,
to
question.
staff, if
Yeah,
I may.
yeah,
So I think that one of the rationales for the 4-year was that it didn't go into a council election cycle. I appreciate the funding, but if I have this, it would be winter 2023 going to 27 and the elections in 28. How does that impact? And are there any staff concerns on a 5-year?
Okay, Ms. Yansu.
I think you know what I'm going to say, Your Worship. The election is 2026.
26, yeah, thanks. That's not even great adding. That's
Yeah,
embarrassing.
it would affect things, but I think 3 elections down the road where we would be in alignment and the next council could change it.
So I guess, are there any concerns from staff about, because it was suggested as a 4-year now to have the 5-year. Are there concerns?
I don't have any concerns.
Okay,
Oh, Councillor Herring.
Council Herring, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just so, and to clarify along with that, if at any point the obligations of the contract are not being met or there problem with the contract, we could revisit that regardless of whether it's 5-year or not.
Okay, that was
Correct.
my question.
Right. So,
Further, Councillor Sim?
So to clarify that, what is the evaluation process?
The evaluation process for it.
Yeah, so we're going to go through the first season. So where is there? Because I'm gathering that, indicating that the 5 years that you've said is, what you've said is that it was important for financing, which gives the impression to me that the financing is required for the equipment. And so if there's any glitches with that and they're not able to fulfill what's been cited in the contract, where is our backdoor on that?
Is it in the contract itself? If they can't fulfill their obligations, then we would have the right to cancel the contract.
So there's also, my understanding, we used to call it a quality service plan, or there's measurables that Public Works, your department, looks at on an annual basis to whether or not the contractor is meeting the standards. That's all part of the contract language. Is
Right.
that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Frizzle?
So this price here of $742,000, is that firm, or can they come to us and say, well, this cost more money than I thought, so can they charge us more money?
Well, there are certain items that are lump sum. Sorry. But there are items where we've just requested, like their unit rates. So if we ask them to do extra work, so there's always some extras.
If you ask them, but,
Yes.
but they would have to come to you to approve the extra,
Correct. Like for snow removal would be a lump sum. Correct.
okay.
Thank you.
So it's not, we won't watch money falling from the sky. So it's,
No.
they clear snow and that's the job. There's no
Correct.
extra.
If I can get the items that are set in the contract, the deliverable set in the contract, that's a firm price. You have unit prices for various activities. Say we have an extra run on potholes, we have some road repairs that we need done. You have a set rate, or you have a unit price for those items sort of pre-agreed to with the contractor in the contract?
Yes, for labor and materials and yes.
Okay, yeah. So I think one that would probably be better example would be water main break or something along those lines, unexpected item. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, this sounds a lot like my contract used to be. Okay, thank you. One more question, Councillor Frizzle.
With this contract, there's things being put onto Public Works. Are our Public Works prepared for that extra work in the winter? Whoa, something happened. It just seemed like there was more.
So
There is
cold patch and a few other
The
things?
cold patching, sign maintenance, and trail maintenance.
Yes.
They're all set for that. There's no extra training or anything or
Yes. Yeah.
be looking for?
They're definitely taking
Oh, God for that.
ready to take it on.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Bratton?
I thought the trail maintenance and whatnot was put on to try this contract. Was it not on the previous, it was off the previous contract? We had put it on as a thing, but it's asked to be taken off? Does that make sense?
I didn't.
Has trail maintenance always been part of the contract?
No.
Is a better question.
So there was some of the trails were constructed during the term of the last contract and the extension to that contract. So my understanding is that was an add-on in the past. Is that correct?
Correct. It was done as a change order.
Change order, yeah.
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 Okay.
So this now encompasses, yeah. Okay.
May I ask the process of what happens? We've said that if they don't fulfill to the contract needs, there's a process. What's our process? Am I allowed to ask that here? Is that after?
We'd have to go through our lawyers and
Okay.
to break the contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know the details of
Yeah.
of how that would proceed, but
I think if you want to take the time to read the contract, I think that can be probably, or the proposal anyways, that would probably explain things to you a little bit better, and maybe come in and sit with staff and do that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, if it's anything like what the contracts I signed 5 of those over time. There are lots of ways legally to evaluate performance to make sure that the contractor is meeting the performance goals, but also there are multiple ways to initiate getting out of a contract. I had force majeure, non-performance. So, for this one, if you want to take the time to come in and read, come into my office. Let's have a look at it, if you
It's
like.
in the agenda package too. Yes.
Thank you.
So there is a recommendation. What is the desire of council?
I'll move the recommendation that we award the contract for 5 years for the $642,000 to include the revised cost for sweeping.
sales taxes to Black River Contracting starting September 22nd, 2023. Do I have a seconder on that?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Frizzle. All, further, Mr. Carmichael.
And I should probably ask Linda if there is an increase each year. I did not calculate out for the full 5 years how much that will be.
Like basically an inflationary or a cost.
Yeah, so it's based on the
CPI,
CPI.
sorry.
Yeah, so
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Seconded by Councillor Frizzle. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Okay, and that passes. Thank you. Upper Clearwater River, Clearwater River Trail update 16.4. Page 61 to 64 of your package. I'm sure people will have questions on this one. Maybe comments or explanation from staff. I believe I'd asked this question last week, and it was, you'll note that the cost of backing out of this project and returning funds is actually fairly close to continuing forward, even with the additional to do this project. I also note that this was flagged by the previous CAO as a possibility, and in a change of staff at Rec Sites and Trails, sort of concern about the size of the bridges, whether they could fall under a Rec Sites and Trails standard, or they would need to be an engineered bridge. That was flagged as well at that time. And this just shows you that sometimes when staff change, the understanding of costs change as well. Okay, questions? Councillor Sim.
Yeah, and I think you've just provided the perfect bridge to this question. No pun intended. Well, actually there was. Going through some of the minutes from the Trails Task Force is that, and when the previous rec site was there, it read like Parks and, or the Recreation was going to take over all responsibility for bridges. Is that the point that's no longer the case? Like,
No.
I'm muddled on that one.
I don't think that's the case. This specifically is, Rec Sites and Trails would take over maintenance of the bridges once they're constructed, if I'm reading that correctly. Where the problem lies here is that the Rec Sites and Trails approved bridge designs, which did not require engineering, were only for a certain length. The actual crossing are actually longer than that
Okay.
maximum length of the standard Rec Sites and Trails wooden bridge. So these needs to be engineered bridges. They'll probably technically be lower maintenance because I'm hearing they'll be aluminum. I've seen that kind of bridge done before. The other factor here is that this grant is going to finish very quickly, and if we do not complete this project, it ain't going to happen. And now that we have to have an engineered bridge, essentially designed and built, we have to do that in short order to make that happen. Okay. Further questions, Councillor Herring?
So, my understanding of the funding of this trail project is this was a three-way collaboration, was it not? It's us, Rec Sites, Trails in BC, and Parks, I believe, because the trail goes between all three jurisdictions?
It's three jurisdictions. The funding of it was not three jurisdictions. It's one fund plus additional. If I can remember correctly, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, it was grant funding, and now we're throwing in some gas tax reserves to complete the budget amendment. And I believe there's definitely a lot of in lieu time from staff on this project over the years.
So we're funding improvements in BC Parks and Trails Recs in BC at the expense.
We are funding projects that are actually technically, I believe, in the TNRD. Go ahead, Mr. Prime.
Just a clarification, it's not in a BC park, it is on Crown land, and the purview of Rec Sites and Trails, I don't believe BC Parks have been involved at any point.
Yeah, it's Crown land that actually lies within the TNRD.
Yeah.
But it is, and it will be, that portion of the trail, is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, will be maintained by Rec Sites and Trails, at least the bridge maintenance.
But triple decker's in the park.
It's not in the park.
No,
Not in the park.
Really? Isn't there a provincial park boundary sign right on the trail?
No,
further up.
further up.
Just above the falls, but still on the trail.
No.
It's close, but no.
Real close? Okay.
No. I believe the first provincial park boundary sign is almost to Spahats. The provincial park does come down the river valley, but I don't believe it comes that much up the hillside.
There's a sign that says District of Clearwater boundary. It used to be a sign, and I think with the snow clearing, it's now down, but that would be approximately where it is, but it's close.
Yeah.
Close.
But
Hey?
it's in.
Just barely.
Yep.
Okay. What is
Sort
the
of like Dunn
desire?
Lake.
What is the desire of council on this? Further questions, comments?
I mean, I'll move the recommendation. I think it's foolish for us to pull the plug at a huge expense, more than what it costs us to finish the project. It's unfortunate.
I think we should also caution that we are going into a new design phase, and this may not be the end of it. But yes, I would agree with you on that. Further discussions or comments? Councillor Frizzle?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, it's been designed, hasn't it?
No, not these bridges. I think there's a tentative design on this. Somebody want to comment?
He smiles.
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, what was the question?
Has the bridge been designed?
Yes, the bridge has been designed.
Okay, so the new Robson design build construction, that bridges have been designed? And
No, McElhaney did the bridge design. The aluminum bridge, the wooden bridge over Sands Creek is following rec sites and trails.
Okay. So McElhaney's already done that. Okay, thank you.
So I'll second the motion with optimism that this will be the end
Okay, thank you.
and the start of a great trail for the community and visitors.
Finally.
It's needed and really wanted, and it's been looked forward to. So let's hope this will be the end, and it's just this great, wonderful thing for our community.
We have a deadline of March 31st, I believe,
Yeah.
to spend the grants, so it should be completed by March 31st. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. 16.5, as noted, there was a regular council meeting set for September 19th. Generally, this gets caught, but it happened to fall in time for UBCM, so this is a housekeeping matter that we need to cancel the September 19th meeting because we will not have quorum, as only 2 councillor members won't be attending UBCM, and I believe one will be still on holidays. So, what is the desire of council?
I move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Frizzle.
second that.
Seconded by Councillor McKenzie. All those in favor, and that passes. Moving on to item 19.1. There is a letter from the Trails Committee. Discussion. Do not wish to discuss, oh, go ahead, Councillor Herring.
I'm not sure how to proceed on this, but I wanted to express my own feelings. The Trails Task Force is a super valuable resource municipally that we can continue to leverage. I think that we need to work on this. Our committee structure restructuring is something we've been wrestling with, and I'm not sure where this conversation fits, but I do think we need to revisit this in response not only to the letter, but into who these volunteers are and how they've contributed to the community over the last years and years since they've been operating. I just look at this as, if you're a business and you hire somebody with a skill set that's not in your normal thing, your normal bailiwick, if you hire a carpenter who also has tile setting skills, you want to take advantage of that skill, and you want to be able to use that. We have a group of community volunteers who have made a huge contribution to the community, done a ton of work here, and I think we can continue to leverage that. We have these people on board. So to me, I'd like to revisit this, but I wanted to see where the rest of council's at.
Further questions, comments?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I struggle with this one because I'm just looking at the overrun that we are doing on this one here, and that's already happened over on the Dutch Lake, and it's happened over on the Hospital Hill, and I think we've done a lot very fast. I think we need to take a breath, and I think we need to finish what we've got going, and then we need to concentrate on all the projects that are happening in the community. I agree with you. I think they've done an amazing job, and they're very skilled, And I just think at this moment in time, we need to just be more clear on what the trails are going to accomplish and what we do with how much it's going to cost us when it's there for maintenance and whatnot. We noticed that last year with this trail here, we didn't have a place to put snow. So it's those types of things we have to really, really think about when we think about trails from now on.
Councillor Sim and then Herring.
I agree with both those comments. I think that exactly what you're talking about, Councillor Frizzle, is why we need to meet, to have that closure and to understand the scope, because there's been a lot of information and there's been a lot of large projects that, you know, I don't think all of council is aware of because it's been in a committee fashion. So in their final paragraph is, if in the interest of assisting council to carry on the vision and goals related to trail and pathway, we would welcome an opportunity to meet with council and present some thoughts that may assist council going forward. It is really truly to pass the torch, and also maybe an opportunity to extend gratitude, because the connectivity was done on volunteer time with staff, you know, support, absolutely. And they also say it's not to lobby for the committee, but to bring appropriate closure to our services. And I would like to bring appropriate closure and glean from them. And I concur with Councillor Herring that when we look at our new committee structure is, you know, continuing to engage the valuable skills and, you know, dedication that our citizens have offered.
Thank you, Councillor Herring.
Yeah, and just in response to your comment, Councillor Frizzle, I think it's, you know, part of what they did was the Trails Master Plan, and what you're talking about to me speaks of reevaluating the Trails Master Plan. It's work that still is appropriate for the Trails Task Force and for council to be brought from the Trails Task Force. I think their job is not just to make pathways in town, but to evaluate trails and connectivity in the creation of the Trails Master Plan, which is then adopted by council. Right, so to me, the work is still there for them to do, even if we change the scope of what work this committee is doing, right? Like if we're saying, you know, look at revised maintenance, that's still work for the Trails Task Force, rather than necessarily just the creation of new trails.
Other comments? Go ahead, Councillor. Don't forget your mic.
I actually really like those comments. There seemed, and I'm coming in on this on the tail end, so I have not been here for the creation of this group. I like what they've done. We've come up with some roadblocks, and it would be great if we could work through those. I like the idea of meeting with them and coming to an understanding on how things could continue in what capacity. And there's some really good knowledge within that group. Maybe some decisions we made weren't with the full information we needed to make that, and getting more from them, I think, means they need to continue in some way, shape, or form. But that's from what I can understand at this point.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie?
Yeah, thanks. A lot of valid points from everyone around the table there. As Councillor Herring said, they are an asset and they've done a lot of great things here. And being in a second term, I've got to appreciate a lot of the stuff they brought to the table. And it's a hard-working crew. We all know that. I'd hate to sever ties, but with the transition of staff and new CAO coming on board, it'd be nice if we could maybe take a 6-month hiatus and come back at tail end of winter, spring, and look at it some more. Because I'd hate to cut it right off at this point, myself.
Thank you. This obviously, you know, I'm going to say that I went a little bit too ahead on this one. That said, if we are going to ask to meet with the Trails Committee, I think we need two things to happen. One, we need to onboard a new CAO, and that new CAO has to do a roundtable understanding of staff capacity, and staff have to be part of the discussion as to what capacity and how much time that the work of the Trails Committee is putting on them. And that's not so that they can say yes or no, it's so that we can approve or increase capacity as needed for staff, because that has been a struggle for a lot of the time with the Trails Committee. Yes, they do fantastic work. The other caution that I would say is that having seen this with TNRD committees that have been put to bed as well. That you cannot allow a committee to wag the dog, so to speak. That you have to have very set terms that say final decisions are decisions of council. That grant applications and those sort of things where you're applying for funding, that is work of staff, designed by staff, approved by staff, not to be done by committee members. They can do some of the color work, but those actual grant applications and that sort of thing have to be done by staff. And that is capacity. That's a capacity issue that you need to consider that. That all said, I do appreciate the comments of a multi-month timeout, and I do appreciate the comments of meeting with this group and having a discussion, because I think somewhere in the middle there is a way forward. Okay. Councillor Sim.
On that, I do note that they've signed at the former Trails Task Force, so I don't think that it would be it would be revived. I think it is really just a closure, and I think it's just, I see it as an education session, and I really value, when the new CAO, I think that, for example, even the connection between Dutch Lake and 37 East and then the new trails, we all admit that there's some gaps there, and just that learning and some of that experience, and for me, it's just an opportunity to say thank you as part of the closure.
Sure.
And so and Councillor Herring, maybe you've got some ideas, but to respond and say, that council would like to meet for the closure and the learning, but, and with the new CAO.
Okay, thank you. And I think if we can just, we can put this decision as to how we do this. I mean, it's going to be communicated out, hopefully in the public right now, because we're in a council meeting, but at least give the new CAO a couple of weeks on the ground before we have this meeting. And or Ms. Yansu can say that council would in the future like to meet with, send that letter to the members of this group, but they would like to wait till they've onboarded a new CAO with some time, if that's okay with everybody.
Do you need a motion to that?
Your worship, yes, we would like a motion for that.
So motion would be, somebody would like to make the motion, that's
Wanna do it
to send
together,
a letter to
Councillor
the
Herring?
former members of the Trails Committee to thank
My motion, and it'll be a clumsy attempt, the motion is to direct staff to acknowledge the receipt of the letter and to express the interest of council to meet for an education and closing meeting with the Trails Task Force once the new CAO has been onboarded. Does that hit what people feel? And I'd love to have some nuance if that did not capture it.
Yeah, and I think we can't, just thinking of the number of new files that the new CAO is going to have to get his head around, including things further in your agenda. I think there's two parts to this meeting. One is saying hello and doing some closure. But as far as any sort of detailed work moving forward, that's got to be a later.
No, it is not. I think it is really just the passing and the closing and understanding what knowledge they have to share moving forward.
Okay, cool. If that captures enough to move forward, okay, you move that.
Yes, I did.
Seconded. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Good stuff. Correspondence, information only. Letter regarding motion to double rural transit. Stop me if there's anything here you want to talk about. Letter regarding UBCM motion to double rural transit from another source. Invitation to resource breakfast series at UBCM from C3 Alliance Corp. Proclamation request, National Drowning Prevention Week. See any of those? Thank you. There are no notices of motion. Comments from the public. Hello, Annabelle.
I'd just like to know, if my memory serves me right, we've had a noise bylaw and everybody shuts their music down at 11 o'clock, right?
I'm going to have to defer to staff for the details on the noise bylaw if anybody here knows, but yeah, go ahead.
The music was on until probably closer to 2 o'clock in the morning.
Sorry.
And you could hear it And it's in our subdivision.
Whose music?
Kenneth McKay.
Okay, so that would require Ms. Yansu.
Thank you, Your Worship. Any bylaw concerns like that can be addressed through the office and the bylaw officer. So if my apologies, I don't know her last name. If Annabelle could give our office a call about that during office hours, we can address that.
Yeah, so pop into the office and let them know. That's the way the system has to work, and then deal with that. But yes, thank you. Anything further from the public? Seeing none, we do have to move to in camera that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to sections 91 of the community charter, discuss matters relating to I, the receipt of advice, the subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could be reasonably expected to harm the interests of the municipality. C, labor relations or other employee relations, and N, the consideration of whether a council meeting should be closed under provision of this subsection or subsection 2. Mover and a seconder on this. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Fizzle. All those in favor, let's take a 10-minute recess, please. Thank you.
So, are you staying?